Welcome to another episode of inspireWord. We are so excited to have our guest, Steve Pokorny, today. Steve is doing unbelievable work for the church and helping others, and we're going to dive into that here shortly. First, we want to recognize, as always, our supporters who have supported us over many years: Solidarity Health Share, Catholic Order of Foresters, and the Catholic Speakers Organization, helping bring a lot of valuable services to the world in the name of Christ. But first, Steve, you're coming from us, I believe. Are you in San Antonio this morning?
San Antonio, Texas, baby. Been here 13 years.
God's great country, the great state of Texas. God bless you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let's jump right into this. Now, you're doing work that I believe is addressing the main downfall of society. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. No, I mean, the work we're doing in freedom coaching is, I would say in a certain sense, essential. It's the 572,000 pound elephant in the room that sadly a lot of Catholics just don't want to talk about because it is in every square inch of our lives in many cases. And from the movies we watch, the TV shows we see, the stuff on the internet, the magazines that you check out, your local HEB here in Texas, right? All these different areas, it basically is messing with men, women, children, marriages, families, government institutions. You name it, it's found here. And what pornography is any image, written or audio that's trying to get us to use another person for means my own selfish sexual gratification, right? And we've normalized this, Joe. We think this is normal. We think this is the way things are supposed to be. But when we compare this with what is God's original plan for the body, for sexuality, for life and love, for masculinity and femininity, we see their worlds apart. And sadly, because we aren't talking about this issue, and we aren't even more so proposing genuine answers for people, there's a lot of confusion here and a lot of heartache.
Steve, you take, and it's pornography, we're going to be talking about, among other things, theology of the body and what freedom coaching also does for, not only the masses, but one-on-one with your clients. And then we're going to get into why a parish, an event, anybody in the world, a company should bring you in as a speaker, which is why we're behind you and completely support the work you're doing. But can you give us some statistics on pornography? And I've heard it's the most silent killer, where most, you talk about addiction, drugs, people do, weed, or they do what have you. But really, pornography affects more guys and gals than any drug in the world. I've heard that before. Can you shed some light on how, let's just call this a pandemic, how powerful this pandemic is?
Oh yeah. So I mean, if we're looking at this issue, I mean, just quoting from one of the most popular websites ever in the world, which is by the grace of God, it's being taken down and dismantled from various litigations and lawsuits, Pornhub. And I don't encourage anybody to Google Pornhub or go check out Pornhub by any means. But this is just from their own internal stats, which they released to show that this is a big deal. And this is just a couple of years ago, and this is pre-pandemic, right? Pre-shutdown. Said over 5.5 billion hours were spent watching pornography. That's more than twice as much that humanity spent existing on planet Earth. Over 1 million hours and over 500,000 years of video full of porn were consumed in a span of 12 months. Over 207,000 video views and over 63,000 visitors every minute of every day were watched there. And since 2015, and again, this is 2018, human beings have spent well over 1 million years watching pornography. So we know this is a huge issue in internal discussions with a lot of priests. That's what we do here in freedom coaching. We find that this is the number one sin confession. Confess in the confessional by far. Number two is probably stealing, which is kind of interesting. But if we think of what pornography is stealing beauty. That's what it does. And it steals our hearts and our minds and our souls. And in this, we find that this is affected, as I mentioned, all breadths of life. And these, especially children, right? Children, they're getting this vision of what life and love is about through the lens of pornography. That's about seeking myself. Well, these are the the youth that are going to grow up and are going to be your school teachers for your own grandkids, that are going to be your teacher, that are going to be the leaders in our government institutions, that are going to be the ones at your own local supermarket, right? Around it. These things affect us. What we do in the one of the biggest lies, Joe, that we bought into is that what we do in the privacy of our own bedroom just stays with us. And that's not true, right? These things really affect us. And we know how deep, if we're honest, if we're really honest, the guilt, the shame, the self-hatred that comes from not living out our bodies and our sexuality as gift, how much it hurts. So we've got to all hands on deck on this.
Right. Well, and I also want to get your thoughts on the groomer, or let's call it the grooming toward pornography, which our society has unknowingly fallen for and fallen hard. And what I'm talking about is social media. And so let's talk to the parents for a minute. When you turn on TikTok, Instagram, anything really, I cannot go through even our Catholic speakers at our organization, our Instagram, without some young girl or guy, dancing in front of the camera. Talk to me about, am I being way too sensitive here, or how is social media playing a part in what's supposed to be an innocent way, right? Oh, it's just a dance. I'm not, I don't really know what I'm saying here, and that I'm not condoning or not condoning it, but is this playing a part in this pandemic of pornography?
Sure. I mean, so let's make it very clear. Joe, you and I right now, right? Some people who are watching this, they're watching this through social media. So social media in itself can be a good thing. But we do know that, especially if you look at various documentaries, one that had it was on Netflix. I'm totally blanking on the name of it right now, but it was really going after Facebook. And then you look at TikTok itself, we know is a Chinese-run app, things like that is not invested in the goodness of humanity, but in many cases of kind of socialism, communism, trying to control there. And what is the vision for the human person that's given? The focus of a lot of social media, what it should be used at, where the goodness should be, is connecting people, and hopefully to get people to connect in person. But the problem comes in with a lot of these technologies is the focus is on me, right? How much viewership I can get? What's the numbers I can get of likes of this certain video? And we know the fact that the human heart itself, based on the fact that we were created in the image of God, but the fact that there's original sin there, there's concupiscence, that desire to want to be selfish comes in. We take something good and through sin it gets twisted to be twisted, and it gets to be this aspect of, instead of making this gift of self, such as a dance, a beautiful dance. Dance is wonderful, right? You can tell how the status of a culture based on dance. But then that dance here with social media, just using the example from TikTok, gets twisted to it's about me, and it's about excitement in a lustful way, right? And what that does not bring joy to the human heart, but instead steals it. And so our children, for instance, my dear parents, please, you must be aware of the technology that your children are using. This stuff is not neutral right now. In many cases, it is hunting your children. It wants to take out the innocence of your children. And if we are concerned at all about preserving the faith of Catholics, which if we haven't been paying attention, we're in a world of hurt right now. The quickest way for your children to lose their faith is for them to become pornified, for them to get eroticized. And this stuff is happening earlier and earlier. Just take this with, I call it the LMNOP agenda. Right now we're in June. That is intentionally invested with, for instance, some of these events. Drag your kids to pride events that we've seen in certain places. I don't think anybody on this watching this necessarily is going to take your kids to those things, but they are hunting at your local library. They're doing these things of showing books and having them out here. And I think Catholic Vote is another good organization that's kind of sounded the alarm on that aspect. But with social media, these things like, if you're giving your kids a smartphone without having this education and monitoring, very like a hawk, we got to be like hawks even more than ever before. It is like giving your kid a gun without shooting lessons, right? You're leading to, it's going to lead to harm of them and of others. And then that whole aspect of grooming, we don't know who's behind the people who might be contacting your children, right? Private messages, things like that. And that can lead down to a world of hurt, not just for young ladies, but for a lot of young boys. I'm seeing in San Antonio, I see these, I think I've seen 3 big, huge billboards talking about trafficking boys. Okay. Because the shame that gets in there, where just for instance, they are encouraged to share, they think it's a girl who's like, hey, I'm going to show you a naked picture. And then what happens is you're going to share one of mine, but it was never a young lady at all. It was somebody else with nefarious things, and says, if you don't give me more of these things, or do what I'm telling you to do, I'm going to release this all over your social media and to your parents. And we're seeing one of the aspects, one of the outcomes is sometimes suicides that come from this, because the absolute shame and not sure what to do about this, right? So, and I think part of this, Joe, we feel like, oh my gosh, we shut down the internet completely. And maybe there's an argument for that, but we wouldn't be talking right now, right? So it has to be this a deeper education, a deeper involvement of building genuine intimacy with our children, and especially discover what is God's plan for our bodies and sexuality. The truth always convicts. The truth always changes lives here. But how often are we exposing our kids to that truth? I'll guarantee, if you are just going with the flow of things, the world is speaking a whole lot louder and a whole lot more frequently than we are about the truth of the faith.
Right. Well, as you're talking about that, and as our viewers know, inspireWord is all about overcoming challenges. It was, we started it, Catholic Speakers Organization started this series with many speakers and public figures like yourself to encourage and to motivate folks to understand that God is in hard times, and that when we're challenged and we meet challenges we're not expecting, like COVID-19 back in 2020, that God is still with us. So we've identified the problem, we've identified the issues that you take head on. Talk to me about how Freedom Coaching is different from any other program, but also talk to us about how you help the world overcome this terrible pandemic called pornography and the things that surround it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. So this is it's a great questions there. So as we talked about, this is a massive scourge, and so starting back in 2011, based on my own personal conversion from this, God called me to start what's called Freedom Coaching, which is a one-to-one mentoring system designed to break the power of pornified images permanently. We work with both men and women, and we now have a team of 7 of us, 7 coaches that are working worldwide with those who are dealing with this, right? And most people, when they hear about pornography use, they think that this is, once I'm hooked, I'm always hooked. And we like to say, God has another plan here. Nothing is wasted. Everything is redeemable. And so through a 4-part process of with clients, by the end of this process, they have what they need to be done with this forever. So unlike a lot of other programs that are focused on mere, technology to stop the problem, such as web filters or web accountability, and I want to make it clear, if something's working for a client actually, or person who's dealing with an attachment to pornography or lustful behavior, then use it. By God, please use it, right? But what we found with so many clients who come to us, that I've tried everything here. I've tried everything. I just can't get the answer here. And the reason is, Joe, we need to, if you put your faith in technology itself, technology will fail you. What is needed is a transformation of mind, heart, and vision. And what we found in our experience, it's only through grace. It's only through the grace of Jesus Christ and the power of his church that can really heal this. And so our primary focus is on Catholics. Do we get non-Catholics we work with? Of course we do here, right? And I think the big word that really sets Freedom Coaching apart is discipleship. We want to walk with those who come into who come to us. Like, we get some of the most broken men and women. I get to see the amount of stories, Joe, may turn you white, right? Whiter than white, right? In hearing the brokenness that's going on here. But from here, what the beautiful thing is, in walking with them, of giving a space for them to actually talk through these issues, but then also giving them a tried and true method of over 11 years, almost 12 years of effectiveness. We see these men and women, a vast majority of them, be able to walk in genuine freedom if A, their grace is made available to them, B, they open themselves to the grace, and C, they respond to that. They do the work. We see utter transformations. And then what happens here, and this is a message to my brother, the priest, our beloved priests out there, Imagine those men and women who have been coming to confession for maybe years. They start getting healed, and then they start investing in your parish. And then what happens with your parish? It starts to come alive. And then maybe they start entering into their vocation of marriage and family. We're talking about a generational impact. So I'm humbled to say, as a founder here, getting to see just the fruits of what grace can do in transformation, and as encouragement to anyone who may be dealing with this themselves, that there is hope and there is healing for you.
Absolutely amazing. It's as I'm listening to you talk, so many things are going to through my mind about, how what you're doing is such a monumental task. So we all can kind of have a better idea when you talk about walking with the person, right? Is that you personally walking with clients? Do you have a team? Kind of give an idea of can you shed quickly some light on that?
Yeah, sure. So I certainly am working with clients. My caseload, I think, is somewhere between probably 15 to 20 a week that I personally am using, and then our other coaches are taking on other clients as well. And I do fully expect, Joe, especially since this issue is not going away. One of my coaches calls this we have a bottomless pit of clients, sadly. But and that's why I'm saying if there's other organizations that are actually helping solve the problem, please join in this. We need your help. But what we found here is the method that we're using, the strategies, techniques, but especially the philosophy of what we're doing is really a game changer for countless people who come to work at Freedom Coaching. So again, it's a 4-stage process, Joe, that we're working with. First is looking at a client's history through a specific lens, that there's a lot of healing there. Second is a deep dive into the neuroscience pornography of why we can't break free on our own willpower. Third is identity formation, so understanding who we are as a beloved son or daughter of God, and also coming to learn and experience and live genuine intimacy. So that identity and intimacy piece, those are 2 of 3 elements that are especially key with the full answers on this. And then the 4th stage is vision coaching. The reason why so many men and women are trapped in this seemingly for years is because they're blind. They've never learned how to see the body correctly. And if we continue in that blindness, we'll never experience the freedom we're longing for. But we can learn to see the body correctly, be programmed by genuine beauty, especially the way the church teaches about the beauty of the body. Then the scales fall from our eyes. We no longer desire to look with lust. There's a very different experience. And there's things that we'll teach clients that even if there's a movement towards lust, we have a way to neutralize that in about 3 seconds. Wow. And it's a beautiful, beautiful process. Wow. And what clients learn, one last thing here on this point, is clients learn something way more. They discover themselves, they step into themselves, they become comfortable in their own skin. And they start receiving these skills, especially for life, that go way beyond the issue of just freedom from pornography. What is freedom for? It's beginning to live my life in the way that God has created me to live it. And that's what a gift. What a gift.
Wow. Yeah. Give me 2 of your favorite testimonials from folks that have experienced your program.
Sure. There's so many testimonies, and I don't know if these are my necessary favorite, but it's really touching when I hear this. So one, his name is actually Bob Appleby. I can go public with his name because he's gone public with his testimony. He's in New York, and he said, freedom means that pornography is no longer a threat to my relationship with the Lord or my wife. It has no power over me. It is a weak, whimpering corpse. I can see the devil coming from a mile away and know how to combat him now. Right, that is a huge thing. And then from a female client, she said this: freedom coaching has brought me to rethink my idea of freedom. I now see freedom as a great gift. It is not something that centers on yourself. Go back to the TikTok videos, right? So that you can do whatever you want. It is a gift that should be given away for the good of others. I now realize that true, fulfilling freedom is not found in selfish gratification, but in selfless giving and love.
Wow, it's awesome. Powerful. That is awesome. I mean, for the work you're doing, not only is it satisfying enough, but I'm sure hearing that kind of stuff and the lives you're changing with what you're doing has got to be, it's why we're on this earth, right? It's no pun intended with what we're talking about with addiction, but it's a high that you probably can't find anywhere else, because the good Lord puts that on our hearts. Steve, how do people fall in the trap of pornography. I mean, it's something like we've already discussed that affects way more people than those that admit it does. But is it something that you find that normally somebody thinks, "Oh, I'm a good guy. I got a good job. I have a good family, whatever," and they start looking at it a little bit or whatever that is, whether it's a video or like you said, there's other forms of it. How does somebody? What are the pitfalls people need to be aware of for themselves to be like, "Uh-oh, this is a slippery slope"?
Sure. So I would especially first and foremost pay attention to blast. Bored, lonely, hungry, angry, stressed, tired. I would also throw apathy in there. Emotionally, overall emotional and depressed. There's blasted for you, right? We got to pay attention to what emotions are going on, right? Because Joe, you and I know very clearly we're at war. Okay, this is a spiritual war. A battle is not with our brothers and sisters. I don't care what color your skin is. I want to love you and see you for the person that you are. Our battle is against powers and principalities. And Satan would have no more joy, if we can call it joy, in his heart than to drag someone to hell because of the sins of the flesh. Right, as Our Lady of Fatima said, is the most common of elements here. Second is you've got to be aware of what you're watching. There's nothing wrong with wanting to take a break from life and wanting to watch a movie or something there. But what we find is this stuff is so commonplace. We've normalized it into thinking that pornified humor or pornified visuals, right, that's trying to get us to, again, use another person as a means of one's own selfish sexual gratification is normal. And so I would say we got to be really careful about what are we doing. So parents, one simple thing, a check on this: IMDb, Internet Movie Database. Look at the parents' guide on that. Do research on the movies that you may be exposing your children to, that you might think this looks fun and innocent, where the message or a little thing that was in there may turn us away there. The other thing, Joe, that I would say is, especially for men, how many of you have good, healthy other male friendships? So many guys just feel utterly cut off. They feel alone, especially if they've been married or they've got kids. I'm just doing this on my own. I'm trying to provide for the family. The economy is stressing me right now. And then this looks easy. Maybe my relationship with my wife is not as healthy as it is. Pornography gives the lie that the women there are utterly interested in us, that they are utterly available. It's about your pleasure, not hers at all. And it's just easy. And that's not what life and that's not what love is. Love is hard work, right? And so, but it's also beyond that hard work. It's what has meaning, has value, has gravitas. We want something to mean something. We want our lives to mean something, right? So we've got to be aware of this. And then also, just to my dear sisters out there, this is Vicki Thorne, is the former founder of Project Rachel. She just passed away earlier this year. So please say a prayer for Vicki. She talked about years ago at a talk. She talked about how when a woman sees a pornified image or pornified video or something like that, during her cycle, if she's not ovulating, she might think of it as just a yucky picture, okay? Just a dirty movie or whatever. But during the time of ovulation, we find that this could possibly trigger her. And then after that initial triggering can lead her into getting this, being moved, being aroused by this at any point in her cycle. So something to be aware of, something on a biological reality here. And especially with young ladies, right? A client that I worked with, when she was 8 years old, it was a pop singer. Some of her music started to move her down that path because there was an apparent hole that was there. No father or mother is going to live their marriage perfectly or to be a father and mother perfectly. But and obviously grace can make up for a whole lot of that. So we have to realize in our own hearts, where perhaps was the love and intimacy that we were craving from our parents not present? Where did we not receive it, right? These are deep questions that we've got to do it, which brings us to the fact, right? And this is the fifth thing to be aware of, right? Where are we at with our prayer life? And perhaps that's the most important aspect here. Are we bringing Jesus Christ front and center into our life daily? Are we having a daily walk with him sacramentally? Are we into his word? Are we praying? Are we on the bead? Not the pill, the bead, right? The weapon that can bind Satan, right? All these different things are really important here. And then especially with that community aspect, are we getting involved with our parish, right? Because it's going to be there when times are hard. It's not going to be these images that are going to save our life or going to be there to support us, but it's going to be real people in flesh and blood meeting in person, right? That are going to make the huge difference.
And Steve, we got about 5 minutes left here, and I'm going to try and pack the two most important, well, not the most important, but two more important questions for you. Yeah. Why should any event in the world bring you in as a speaker? Now we're talking about our world. We're Catholic Speakers Organization. We're always trying to push great people like yourself to get your word out and your message to as many people as possible. Tell me about when someone would bring you in as a speaker for their organization, their parish, their event. What can their audience expect, and what would they walk away with?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for that conversation. If I may humbly say, one of the gifts that God has given me, besides the gift of gab, is the gift to breathe hope into other people, to help them to realize that their life is worth living, as Fulton Sheen would say. Is that God has put on my heart and has given me the mission for this redeemed vision. So many of us in our culture don't feel seen. They don't feel valued as human beings. And a lot of it has to do with because of the lies that we're swimming in. Many of us have not been taught the full truth of the faith. And even if we have, maybe we miss the message, right? And especially because this issue of broken sexuality is touching all aspects of life. Many people feel hopeless. Again, the guilt, the shame, the self-hatred that's present there, Joe. And so my message to you is that there is hope here, that nothing is wasted, that all of this can be redeemed here. And through, I would say I'm pretty comedic at times, especially in presentations, but also hard hitting in sense to cut through a lot of the nonsense, but to give a practical plan. How can I live the life that God is calling me to do it in a way that brings utter joy? That's, I would say, the gravitas and the mission that I've been entrusted with, and it would be an honor to share with any of those who would be open to hosting me.
Well, Steve, we know that, and at our organization, we know the work you do. We've rigorously vetted and watched you over the years, and it's only improved and done amazing work for the Lord. So God bless you for that. And then finally, our final question, which we end every inspireWord series with, the whole intent of this inspireWord series, obviously, again, is to help others get motivation, feel God's love, and overcome challenges. For those out there right now that are struggling with all the things you've addressed in this series, in this episode, what would be your number one piece of advice for them to start?
Be honest. The two things that Jesus Christ can work with are honesty, just being authentic, and humility, is acknowledging who you are on the side of God. You are a beloved son or daughter of God. To quote John Paul the Great, who said, "We are not the sum total of our mistakes and failures. We are the sum total of our Father's love for us and the capacity to be a living image of his son in the world," right? What you're going through. Again, I don't know you from Adam or Eve right now, but maybe I will. Maybe I'll get to know you, right? In this here, we may think things are really dark, that are broken, especially if we've been experiencing a brokenness of our sexuality. Maybe something happened to us when we were younger, or things that we've done that we feel this great regret here. Or maybe we've been going to confession year after year after year, but we're like, where is God, right? I want to encourage you that God hears your pain, that there's a reason for all this, that he wants to be with you. He wants to walk with you. And so through this, if you will give your life over to him, enter into fully where he is, to hear his heart. And maybe it's to simply to slow down, right? Because we're so busy today, and just be. What you're going to find is a new path forward, a path of what you've been looking for, perhaps your whole life.
Steve Pokorny, thank you so much for joining us today. The work you're doing with Freedom Coaching is just absolutely unbelievable. It's watching it grow over the years has been a real pleasure for us, and we are so proud to have the opportunity to work with you like we do and promote and help get your word out to inspire and help the world overcome their challenges. Folks, if you'd like to get in touch with Steve, go to CatholicSpeakers.com. He has a profile on our website. You can easily send him a message, book him. I encourage everyone to consider maybe reaching out to us to bring him in as a speaker. You will not regret it, and it will be something very valuable to your event, your parish, or whatever you may have. Steve, God bless you. Thank you so much for being here with us today to share your message, share your motivation, and most especially your heart toward, helping make the world a better place through God's word. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks so much, Joe. An honor to be with you and your audience.